Well then, let's hop to it. This is Disney's Amphibia, created by Matt Braley. It's the story of Anne Boonchoi, a teenage Thai girl who is magically transported to a world of frogs after opening a mysterious music box. There, Anne meets the wild yet lovable Planter family, including her new best pal, the excitable Sprig, his violent pollywog sister Polly, and their overprotective yet strict grandfather Hop Pop. While stuck in this fantastical world of amphibians, Anne starts to bond with her froggy family and discovers the true meaning of friendship. I know that sounds like a very generic fish out of water story, and for a little while that's kind of all the show is, but if there's one thing Amphibia does right, it's subverting the audience expectations, because believe me when I say that this seemingly silly little talking frogs show has some of the most compelling, well-written, terrifyingly dark, and emotional stories in all of Disney, which is saying a lot. Like, a lot. And I'd like to discuss each season of the show separately, because trying to talk about the entire show at once would not be satisfactory. So let's get right into it. Spoilers for a lot of Amphibia ahead, by the way.
Man, that's Sprig. Good dude. Wait, I know where this is going.
Season 1 of Amphibia is frustrating, and is what most would consider the biggest obstacle for people wanting to check the show out. That sounds ridiculous, I know. How could the first season of a show be an obstacle? First seasons are literally meant to catch the interest of the viewers, right? Wouldn't there be a few bad episodes at worst? Yeah, that's usually the case when it comes to any show, but Amphibia has the very unique issue of a first season that is almost all generic, unengaging, fillerish episodes. To say it outright, the problem isn't that the story isn't in play. The problem is that when the story isn't in play, Season 1 just isn't that good and is very much just a typical kids cartoon for most of its run. Which can and has been a huge turnoff for so many people who wanted to check out Amphibia. Heck, the furthest I've made it was episode 8 in my first few attempts to watch the show. It is absolutely understandable when people say that they watched the first few episodes and stopped because it didn't interest them. That's the biggest flaw of Season 1, not catching the viewer's interest immediately. Don't get me wrong though, while I am being very critical, it's not like Amphibia's first season is worthless entertainment or anything. There's plenty of great moments, and even a few pretty good episodes. Prison Break and Reunion being the highlights, easily. But it feels like you can sum up most of the episodes with Anne or one of the planters wants to do something, it goes wrong, and after resolving the issue, they have a small heart-to-heart about the lesson they learned. It's just that type of story, over and over again. It gets repetitive really fast. So overall, I'm not the biggest fan of Amphibia Season 1, so believe me when I say the show can only improve from here.
The pieces are starting to fall into place. It's time for the game to begin.
Season 2 of Amphibia is one of the biggest jumps in quality I have ever seen in a cartoon. Literally everything about it is better. The animation, the writing, the storytelling, the comedy, the pacing, the characters, you get the idea. It is all better than Season 1, and it is much better. There are two big reasons for this. The story is now fully in motion, and the episodic environments are a lot more diverse, because basically all of Season 1 took place in Wartwood, but Season 2 ventures outside of Frog Valley, leading to much more intriguing and different locations. However, the real stars of the show here are the characters, which have all greatly improved and have become so much more lovable. After the events of Reunion and the brawl that Anne had with Sasha, it's so sweet to see Anne and the Planters have an understanding that they aren't being inconvenienced having to leave Wartwood to find her way home. They're taking the trip together as a loving family, with Anne becoming an official Planter. Anne finally feels real connection with others for the first time, and it's really heartwarming. And thank goodness for that, because her confrontation with Sasha at Toad Tower really left her a wreck, and family is exactly what she needed at this point. Speaking of Sasha, her development is very interesting as she allows her manipulative side to take full control of her actions, as Grime and her plan to take over Amphibia with a Toad army. But despite her lies and deception, it's clear that Sasha is feeling guilt and going to extremes to feed her own toxic need for control. But enough of that, because Season 2 also introduces the best character in the series, the ever so adorable Marcy Wu. Marcy is a kind-hearted, intelligent nerd with a love for the otherworldly, and she probably loves Amphibia more than anyone else in the show. She also suffers more than anyone else in the show, which, considering just how precious she is, means that it's always heartbreaking when something awful happens to Marcy, not to mention equally as traumatizing. Oh, and the season 2 finale, True Colors, is one of the best episodes in Disney cartoon history. It does almost everything perfectly, and not a single moment was wasted. Sasha betraying her friends and taking over Utopia, King Andreas revealing that he's evil and starting a robotic invasion, the reveal that Marcy sent the Calamity Trio to Amphibia, and getting powers from the music box to fight King Andreas, and the planters being sent to Earth, and Marcy getting stabbed through the torso? Jeez, how can season 3 top this? Seriously, how could they top this? Well, let's find out.
Hey, what's going on? What happened here?
Okay, so as expected, it turns out that Season 3 couldn't top True Colors, let alone most of Season 2. In fact, despite the main storyline being the most important it's ever been, a lot of the episodes feel like nothing is happening. There will be small moments where plot-relevant details are mentioned, but otherwise, most of the episodes have a filler vibe, if you know what I mean. Like, they aren't filler, and they do have an effect on the rest of the plot, but at the same time, it's like there's about 20 seconds of something important, and then the rest of the episode is just a bunch of filler nonsense. While on Earth, there is a lot going on as King Andreas sends multiple robots in an attempt to kill Anne and the Planters, as well as Anne getting to reconnect with her parents and the people she was zapped away from. And back in Amphibia, we get to see Sasha finally attempt to right her wrongs as she now understands just how toxic of a friend she was to Anne and Marcy. So in turn, she starts a rebellion with the Frogs of Wartwood, because it's about time she uses her skills to do good. Meanwhile, King Andreas heals up Marcy, only to then force an evil helmet onto her head controlled by the core, turning her into Darcy. However, once Anne and the Planters finally get back to Amphibia, the show honestly becomes the worst it's ever been, because just like how Season 1 followed a repetitive format, Season 3B is always a plot about the residents of Wartwood coming across a familiar face from Season 1 and convincing them to join the rebellion. Except it's worse here because the show does know better than to do this by now. There's so many more interesting plots they could have gone with, but they chose not to? Oh well, I mean, it's not awful or anything. I mean, it is still mildly enjoyable. Well, except for Spryvy and Mother of Olms. Those two episodes in particular are actually legitimately awful. But after that many episodes growing the rebellion, we finally get all in and the hardest thing. The 2 parts of the mega series finale.
1,000 years of suffering, of burying your feelings, of hating yourself. That must have been hard.
I gotta say, the show's crew really pulled out all the stops with the final 2 episodes. While neither reached the heights of True Colors, they're definitely close seconds. And just to make sure you understand, I'm talking about story and writing quality specifically. Because in production value, the finale is easily the most impressive. Everything about it feels so grand. Now that King Andreas has taken the invasion to Earth, there's nothing to do but take him and Darcy down once and for all. The action is fun, the characters are great, the animation is amazing for a lot of the scenes, and the emotional moments are stronger than ever. Not to mention the stakes are the highest they could ever be, especially for Anne, who risks her life multiple times to save the 2 worlds, showing just how selfless she's become throughout the show, until she eventually sacrifices herself to destroy the core once and for all. Which was incredibly shocking to me. Like, the main protagonist of a Disney show actually died. Literally died. The Anne we have afterwards is a clone of the original. That's crazy. That is legitimately crazy. But yeah, once the big bads are taken care of, it's finally time for Anne, Sasha, and Marcy to head back home. The final goodbyes they share with the residents of Amphibia are very beautiful, and only adds to the emotion when you realize that the trio can never and will never come back. And this is the last time any dimensions will come into contact with each other. It really is goodbye. So to end it off, we get a couple of time skips from Amphibia and Earth. We get to see how the frogs, toads, and newts grew and changed their world for the better, as well as see the Calamity Trio as adults and learn how they grew as people. But we also get to see that neither world forgot about the other. no matter how far apart they are and for how long.
Okay, if you want to pick up the longsword, I need you to roll for a strength check because your character is like a little wood elf and, That's what we found eventually, guys!
Amphibia is a show of highs and lows, but those highs are some of the best in Disney. With lovable characters, amazing writing, incredible storytelling, and going above and beyond at every turn, I will gladly give Amphibia an overall grade of A+. It isn't perfect, far from it, but you'd be so hard-pressed to find another show as full of passion, creativity, and fun as Amphibia. And with all that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, I hope you don't mind liking and subscribing. It always helps. And anyways, goodbye everyone.